You seriously gonna eat my broccoli? Agatha! When I was a kid, gardening was something to do during the summer that was just kind of a pastime. My dad used to have a really small garden in the back with just a few rows of tomatoes, a few rows of peppers, and that was it. So there was no planning, there was no starting seeds ahead of time. Everything was always planted in the ground, wait for it to come up, and harvest what you could, share what you didn't eat. And that was just the way I was raised up with gardening. So the motivation for having a garden back then is different than now. With us being self-sustainable, or at least trying to be self-sustainable, the focus is really for production, right? So we have to start plants early. We have to plan what we're going to grow for the year. Up a really interesting question this year. You know, we got our catalogs back in December. Everybody was excited, looking at what we're going to plant, and then you have 2 months of waiting. Here, everybody starts stuff in February. Well, last year, when I started stuff in February, it was horrible. I had tomatoes that were so leggy that they should have been with the Rockettes. I learned really quick that I don't need to start my tomatoes in February. Our frost date isn't until like the 20th of April. Around here, the saying is don't plant until after Good Friday, so around Easter weekend. Well, this year that's like the 4th of April. So there's like this big 2-week window of when do we plant. Well, because of how I got burned last year, I've been, instead of listening to the Farmer's Almanac or listening to a planner here or an app there, I decided I was going to kind of pay attention to what was going on around me. And I learned very quickly that there are so many things around us that kind of tell us when it's time. You know, I started noticing that we have violets growing now. We have daffodils that have pushed up out of the ground and have started flowering. I have Carolina jasmine climbing up different fences and different trees. But there's one thing that's still missing, and that's the wisteria. We have wisteria that usually grows up some of our trees, and I see the vines, but I don't see the flowers yet. So that kind of gives me an indication that maybe my idea of waiting just a little bit longer to start our seeds this year might be a good idea. While everybody else was planting in February, I was sitting on my hands and I was getting, hey honey, don't you think we need to start tomatoes now? Hey honey, don't you think we need to start peppers now? And I kept saying, be patient. Because here's the thing, guys, in our garden, we're still growing food from the fall. And so I really don't see the rush into going into the spring and summer crops. The other thing is tomatoes last year, and even peppers, they didn't, even though I got them in the ground early, they didn't do anything until June. And so my thought is, if I start them in March, then I have March and April, they'll start being really productive by May. So I'm curious what you guys think. How many of you started your plants back in February? How many of you started them before that? Now, of course, everybody's zone is going to be different. We're in 7B. So, but I am curious, how many of you are going by your last frost date? How many of you are going by what you see around you? Thank you for stopping by the Big Bear Homestead. God bless, and have a nice day.